So let's go through the list of possibilities that Josh's column illustrates, and that is Cooper Mays with the Remington Award, D. Williams with the Jet Award, Brew McCoy with the Blitnikoff Award, Dante Thornton with the Blitnikoff Award. These are all possibilities. Josh isn't projecting all these. It'd be a heck of a year if Tennessee won all these. I mean,
Yeah, I bet they win at least 10 games again if they go 10 for 10, especially if they have two players split the Blitnikoff. That'd be crazy.
for the
I'd
first
be
time
I'd be really impressed.
for the first time in Blitnikoff history, they have split the award. Aaron Beasley with the Dick Butkus Award, Omari Thomas with the Outland Trophy, Jalen Wright possibility for the Doak Walker Award, and Danico Slaughter with the Jim Thorpe Award, Charles Campbell, Lou Groves Award, and then I want to get to Joe Milton in a second. But out of that group, what do you think is the greatest realistic possibility if you had to pick one of those?
Well, I would typically say Bolitnikov, but I also don't think they're going to go back to back and win the award. I think if Marvin Harrison stays healthy, he's going to get it at Ohio State because I think he's the best wide receiver and he will go in getting so much attention and hype, and they're going to win a lot of games. Maybe this sounds crazy, but I'll say Joe Milton because the competition at center for the Remington is probably going to be really tough, and it's difficult to make your case. If you have the team success and the stats, it's easier to put together a case that then gets attention with the Heisman Trophy. So I know I'm picking an award that Tennessee's never won, but Tennessee had never won the Blitnikoff a year ago. The case for Joe would be the offense is established and everyone around the nation pays attention to it. If the team has success, they're going to have to win these games against the high level teams. They don't have to go 12-0, but probably 11-1. But let's say they do that. Joe's going to have monster numbers. He is a guy that's going to get a lot of attention with his size. He is a marketable player. And there is the story of, well, he was the starter a couple of years ago. Then Hendon Hooker ended up with the job. Then Joe waited his turn. And I think this summer we've seen a lot of people start to say, hey, what about Joe Milton in a bounce back opportunity? Then you have the hype videos of him launching the football. I mean, he's probably going to have, if we're talking about him realistically being in the race for the Heisman, he's going to have a couple of jaw-dropping bombs that he's going to toss to Squirrel or Dante Thornton or Ramel Keaton in this offense. And you're going to see those over and over again in the highlight reel. All of these are pretty much long shots if you look at the odds to win these awards. But which one's most realistic? Crazy as it sounds, I'm going to say the Heisman Trophy.
Is anybody okay? I mean, sorry to interrupt, Caleb. Is anybody a little sick of hearing about how strong Joe Milton's arm is? And do you think that Joe Milton might be sick of hearing about that?
Maybe a little bit, but
I mean, it's kind of like, okay, I'll give you a comparison, Josh. Tell me if this is a reach. But I lost a little bit of weight a couple of years ago, and people haven't seen me at the gym. It's now been 2 years, and they say, "Oh, you lost a lot of weight. Great job," which is also a backhanded way of saying you used to be really fat. So, I mean, that's what that is. So, with Joe Milton, it's kind of a backhanded way of saying, well, you lack some touch and accuracy.
well, that is the cynical follow-up that a lot of people have had
Right.
is, yeah, we knew that you could throw the football really far at Michigan and in your first year at Tennessee. The problem was that people weren't catching it. And that's really what it's about is anybody can just throw the football a certain distance. It's about the completion, like a reservation at a car rental company. So for Joe, yeah, there's been a lot of it, but he plans to go out there and complete those passes and put up the numbers. And it's an NIL world in college, and he is trying to project to the NFL right now. And those wow throws, the video from 5 or 6 weeks ago at a camp or training session where he launched the football, and then 2 weeks ago at the Manning Passing Academy where everybody stops to watch, and Peyton Manning's a part of the hype of it, and everybody is wowed by what he does. NFL teams pay attention to that. So, yeah, I think Joe is eager to go out and show that he can do more than just throw the football farther than anyone else in college football. But that is getting the attention of a lot of people who will then tune in to see him complete those passes and win those games and put up those numbers as he intends to do.
I love this line. Then take over, Caleb. I'm stealing this. Rocky Top Tom says Joe could overthrow the Flash. I mean, Josh, you're a radio guy. You love to turn a phrase. You've got the bad dad jokes. Um, they are bad. Sorry.
What?
Huh? But that's pretty good. Overthrow the Flash. That's pretty good.
That is really good. I'll also steal that at some point. Maybe I'll come up with somebody else that would be similar. So it's not the Flash exactly, but that's as good as it gets right there.
As far as the Justice League, I oftentimes get, he's as good looking as Superman, but not the Flash thing. Caleb, go ahead.
Well, when you were talking about the backhanded compliment by Joe Milton, for Joe Milton, that's like when somebody says they love their partner because they're so loyal. I'm like, they're saying you're not pretty. That's why they're saying you're loyal.
She has a great personality.
Exactly. Josh, sticking with the Joe Milton thing, it's funny. I felt like you read my mind because I kind of agree with you with the Heisman moment, because I talked to Dave about this a couple of days ago and I wanted to get your thoughts. I think one thing we all agree, if the Heisman voting had been done a week after the Tennessee-Alabama game last year, Hendon Hooker's winning it. No questions asked because of what happened in that game. Well, what if Joe Milton does the same thing against Georgia this year, which is the next to last game of the season? And I think one of the reasons Tennessee's never had a Heisman winner is because for the longest period of time, their November schedule was horrible. I mean, it was Vanderbilt, Kentucky, homecoming game, whatever. And that when you get the chance to have those moments, Tennessee is just trying to get through those games. Do you think playing like a Georgia November really increases the likelihood that Joe Milton could win a Heisman?
Well, let's assume that beating Georgia is on the prerequisites for Joe to go out and win the award. Well, then absolutely. Because if beating Georgia is happening November 18th, it's going to be getting so much more attention than it would 2 months earlier. Get plenty of attention in September like the Tennessee-Florida game does. But then a lot of football happens after that, and a lot of conversations and narratives begin elsewhere, and it's more difficult to hold on to that talk. If it happens November 18th and Tennessee beats Georgia, and let's also assume that game is a huge game, because, again, if Joe's in the Heisman race, Tennessee's got a great record, and I just can't imagine Georgia's not one of the highest-ranked teams in the country. Well, then it's going to have a huge buildup, and then it's going to have a ton of reaction. He'll be getting talk on game day the following weekend, which is closing out the regular season, and then Tennessee's really playing for something at that point. So, yes, Georgia being at that point in the year can be great for Tennessee as a team, assuming it's had success up to that point, and it would aid Joe Milton's Heisman race. You have to go out and the accomplishments that he has to earn, and let's say winning that Georgia game, I mean, that's the case no matter where it is on the schedule. So if it's later in the schedule, it can only benefit him if he does what we're saying he needs to do.
And then we have somebody on the message board that says if Joe stood at the mouth of Montauk Point, Long Island, he could land a football in Munster, Ireland. Well, that doesn't help if Squirrel White's running in the middle of the Atlantic. I mean, you got to be able to hit the receiver too, right, Josh?
What is Dante Thornton's broad jump?
I think it's 10-2. I don't know. Actually, I know that for some reason, but I do. Yeah, but Josh, I do think that, and you've been around the Peyton Manning years, and you've been around a lot of years. I do think that there is kind of a blah to that's been a part of Tennessee's season as far as a Heisman candidate. And Caleb brought this up the other day. I do think that that's been more of a factor than maybe because if Peyton Manning goes out for throws for 350 yards against Vanderbilt, everybody says that's what you're supposed to do. So I don't know if it's better for the team to have Georgia early or late, have a great opponent early or late. But as far as a Heisman campaign, it's got to help, I would think.
Yeah, it just it definitely doesn't hurt, and I do think it helps the timing. When does Michigan play Ohio State? End of the season, right? Well, Charles Woodson, do you think he benefited from his performance against Ohio State? If we're going to bring up who Tennessee's playing versus a competitor in the Heisman race is going up against. So, let's assume Caleb Williams is back in the race. They're going to play some big games late. So I think the bigger the stage, the better the opportunity is for you if you go out and succeed. If they go out and lose to Georgia, then it doesn't matter when that game is. It's really going to hurt Joe's case, and he has to do everything leading up to it. But if Tennessee is winning and Joe Milton is healthy, then Joe Milton's going to put up really big numbers because of what this offense is, and then Tennessee's going to be ranked high, and it's not going to feel fluky either because Tennessee just did it a year ago and had a top 5 Heisman finisher who would have ranked higher probably if not for the injury, and they had a Biletnikoff Award winner, and they have a coach who's a pretty big name in college football, and Josh Heupel with his history in the sport. So Tennessee is back in the conversation. And Joe Milton, he's also, I mentioned it, he's a really marketable guy. He's just a massive figure. He's going to stand out at SEC Media Days when he walks in the room. He's got a big smile. And when he's throwing the football and he's blowing a kiss to his mom in the stands after a big 50, 60-yard pass, that's going to get caught by the cameras, and it's going to circulate through social media and SportsCenter and everywhere else. So a lot of it is about selling yourself. And Joe Milton, I think, will naturally be able to sell himself if he has the results to connect to his name.
Yeah, but what stands out, one of the interesting things is when you look, if you track the history of Heisman voting, the most important weekend of Heisman voting is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. That's the games they weigh the most. I feel like most of them turn in their ballots before Thanksgiving because they don't want to work. And a lot of them don't believe conference championship games should be a factor. There's still that old school belief, which hurt Peyton Manning in 97, by the way, because anybody who watched the SEC title game, if you valued that at all, Peyton Manning would have gotten the Heisman Trophy because there's no way you could watch that game and think that Woodson deserved it over Peyton Manning. But a lot of them turned it in 2 weeks before when Woodson balled out against Ohio State. You're right, Josh. It's a intriguing point. So thinking about that, looking at a couple of other ones,